Hello. Hey, Rachel. Hi, Navpreet. Hey, Rachel, did you have any trouble with the link for this session? Cool. That's good. Hi, Nikki. Rachel, Navpreet, Nikki, if you could say hi in the chat and tell me where are you at in your GRE journey? Are you just starting? Have you been doing it for a while? And maybe also let me know when you're hoping to take it. So those are my two asks to start. Where are you in your GRE journey? Real small audiences for these, so I've been trying to make them a little more custom. We'll talk about that. Where are you in your GRE journey? I'm into the journey metaphor for GRE. It's definitely it's a process, right? It's a lot of time and energy that we invest in doing this. So where are you and when are you hoping to take the test? Hi, Susan. And you can just put this in the chat. My goodness, I was trying to type chat gap, but I couldn't decide which I wanted to do first. Fun. Awesome. Very cool, Susan. Do you, Susan, are you planning to apply these things this year, next year? Like, what's your rough timeline? Like this fall, you want to be done? Thinking about next year? Great. And maybe also tell me what kind of program you're applying for. These days, I mostly teach MBA students. So in my mentally like very focused on MBA deadlines, but let me know maybe if you're looking at like a PhD or because some of the cool. So you're thinking maybe like round 1, round 2. Cool. Awesome. Rachel, I work with a lot of people in similar situations. Yours is a very common story. If you, Rachel, if you want to private chat me like some more details about your specific situation and what you're feeling like you're getting stuck on, let me know. Yeah. Now, I've met you before. You were here in our last free prep hour. Cool. Hey, Nikki. Great. So glad you started off with a practice test. That's perfect. Yeah, Nikki, I love the approach. I think that's a really, really smart strategic plan. Like build, prioritize, target your weakest areas first, build like core math mechanics. I think that's like one of the most important things to do starting out. And then also vocab is a great thing to start with because that can, that's a sort of slower accruing skill. So I think that I think you have a really good plan there. I like it. Cool. All right. So nice to get to know a little bit more about all of you. Maybe you did not expect it would be super small. I used to do these as big like lecture style events, but I have shifted to doing them as Q&As of a sort. I'll try to provide a structure to the Q&A, but I've shifted a little bit because we have such a small group. I want to try to give each of you what you most need today, no matter where you are in your process. If we'll probably do at least some problems, and if we do, we'll be doing them out of this book. If you are starting out, I think the first book that it is really important for you to have, if you do not already, is the official guide made by ETS. ETS is the company that makes the GRE, who is here to collect all of our money from us in order to take this test. But this is a great book because it has real retired GRE questions in it. So this is the closest, this is like the most accurate practice we can get. The test is also, the most accurate we can get, not necessarily super accurate in some ways, which we can talk about. And then if you're going to get a second book, I think that this book is a good one to get from us. And I say that not solely because I work here, but I say that also because it's just a big resource. It has a chapter for every topic with at least like 30 questions. They go from easy to hard. There's like math cheat sheets in the back. Like there's just a lot. You can, you'll have enough practice problems forever. And then the third thing that I would recommend, if anyone is thinking about what materials to start with, Kaplan and Rachel, this may also be good for you too, because my guess is you're at a point where you want to be doing a lot of time sets. Kaplan makes this thing called the Q Bank, and it is just like a time set creation tool. It's a bunch of problems. You can pick if you want to do quant, verbal, what difficulty, what question types, how many questions you want to do, set a timer. It looks just like the official test. So wonderful, wonderful practice tool. For folks starting out, you may want to get to that in a couple of weeks, but for folks who've been with us longer, that is my recommendation if you're in that phase of studying where it is a lot of time sets. Cool. That's my opening spiel. What I want to look at now is this. I want to give each of you what you most need today. So what is your ask? Doesn't have to, it could be a question. It could be like a topic or an area. Like I would most need like a general introduction to the structure of the test, or like I most need to talk about like why probability is so horrible. Whatever it is, think about it. And then if you can put it in the Q&A, that just will make it a little bit easier for me to keep track of it. But if that doesn't happen, that doesn't happen. That's okay. While you think about what your ask is going to be, I'll tell you a little bit about me. I'm Kat. I've been doing this hi, Amber, welcome. Amber, we are having a session based around everybody's needs. So if you could do actually, Amber, what would be super helpful first is if you could chat me, where are you in the GRE process? And second thing is, when are you hoping to take the test? And then chat me that, and then think about what your ask or question for today's session is. We have a small group. We get to be very interactive. I'm Kat. I've been teaching the GRE for 8 years. I've taught a lot of other people to teach the GRE. I've written curricula and questions and books for the GRE. I made an online interactive video course for the GRE. I've taken the GRE many times. I know way more than I think I ever thought I would know about this test and how to prepare for it and how to do well in it. And I have worked with at least 1,000 students, I think, by this point. So I've done a lot of this, maybe 1,000 students, I don't know, 800 students. But I've done a lot of this. And I like being at this point in my career where I get to share that knowledge with other people in a way that might help them. And I particularly like when I am able to do that for free, because they know that this process is expensive, among other things that make it difficult. In my other life, I'm a fiction writer, and I also teach writing, and I do tarot readings, and I'm an artist, so I got all my little things going. But I like doing this in part because I really don't like this test, and I really like helping people figure out how to defeat it. Cool. Thank you, Amber. That's great to know. So we have a couple folks who've been at this for a while. We have a couple folks who are new. Let's see, we may have like a segment where we focus on concerns for people who are new, and a segment where we focus on concerns for people who are a little further along. Yes, Nikki, I will talk about vocabulary. Could you tell me a little bit more like strategies on approaching the exam, like strategies for how to prepare, strategies for managing time, strategies for managing questions? Like that's a broad question. So I want to make sure that I want to give you the like right, correctly targeted answer to it. Awesome. Yes, I would love to talk about that. That is one of my favorite things to talk about. And I think one of the really good questions to ask at the start of this process. Cool. Awesome. That's good to know, Rachel. Maybe we should talk. We'll talk maybe a little bit about geometry to start. And then if we have time, we'll do some word problems. Maybe we'll do word problems because I'll think about it. We'll start with one of those two and then we'll look at the other one. Awesome. Other fix. Nikki. I've got your Nikki. Do I have your ask? No, I don't think I have. Oh, no, I got your ask in the Q&A. Nikki, Rachel, so Amber, Susan, Navpreet, think about what you want to ask. Nikki, I'm going to start with your question about how to approach preparing and about vocab. Then Rachel, do yours. We'll just kind of cycle through. So this is something I think a lot about because I think that the most, and actually, Rachel, this might be particularly helpful for you too. So I think if you are starting or if you are stuck, what I'm going to say, I think applies to both of these cases. How you study is how you study plays a big role in how fast you get better. And it is the variable you can most control. So some things about how fast we can improve are not in our control. That's one of the things I think is very hard about this. How much time you have each day to study, that's not in your control, because my guess is everyone has very significant time commitments with family or work or other obligations. So can't control that all that much. We can't control how fast we learn. Everybody needs time to learn. And then we learn different types of things at different paces, right? If you have always hated math and hated doing it in school, the math is going to be a little slower at first because there's more that you have to kind of dismantle in that. So lots we can't control, but controlling our study habits, our approach, our structure, that we can control. And so that's the thing that I most love helping people with, because I actually think it's the knowledge that I have that is going to help you save the most time. And what I dearly want for everyone is they get this done as soon as possible and can do better things with their lives. So with that little spiel, why is this important? Also, if you are stuck, you probably would benefit from changing something in how you're studying. I work with two groups of people. I work with people who are new, who come to classes, and then I do tutoring with people who have hit a wall and really need some help figuring out how to get around or over or through that wall. And what I see is often the adjustment is in mindset and the adjustment is in study habits. And those are the foundations of all the other great improvement and change. So if you are starting, number one thing, take a practice test, set a goal score, figure out where you're at and where you're trying to get. That just gives you some perspective for how long it might take, how much you're trying to do, how intensively you want to work. Get that perspective. Don't worry if you feel totally unprepared. Just do that practice test. Get that baseline. Then, for most people, you will need some time next to focus on building math foundations, vocabulary, and untimed problem solving skills. This is really the skill and knowledge acquisition phase. And in math, I do math foundations before I do much problem solving. I do a little bit of problem solving, but like if you are, if you haven't done like arithmetic in a really long time, very normal. If I didn't teach GRE, I would never do it. My arithmetic, I would like forget numbers entirely. Someday I dream. Then start with that, get that solid, then bring in the questions. So like, I think a mistake I see is often that people want to do it all at once. Like they want to be learning all the strategies and learning all the math and solving super hard questions and doing it really fast and doing it timed. That's the other thing that's super important. Be able to do it accurately and comfortably first, then you can make it fast. Third phase is then going to be time sets. And this is going to be a lot of mixed timed practice. And this is where you start working on time and speed and more test taking skills. So it's like we have to have a phase where we get the foundations, a phase where we get the problem solving skills, and then a phase where we get the speed. And they mix a little, but they don't totally overlap. I think it behooves us, there's a GRE word, to go in this order. Second thing that is helpful, reviewing problems well is essential. This is a big topic that I could say a lot about, and it is in fact something I think you'll find in a lot of other free prep hours too. These free prep hours are on YouTube. They're very good free resource. Like there's so much content in them. It's really cool. It's just not very well organized. This is essential, and a couple things to do. Find a larger takeaway, diagnose the error, and then focus on process. What can you change in how you are doing the problem that will make it better? Those are, again, a larger topic, but those are some things. And I would rather people do fewer problems and review them really thoroughly than do a ton of problems and not review them. Obviously, volume of problems is important, but the quality of review is more important, especially at the beginning when you have a lot to learn. The review can get faster once you're more in like practicing, iterating, like ironing out wrinkle stage. And then finally, the final thing that I think is really important starting out, consistency is essential. To truly learn something, we have to repeat it. Repeat something 5 times over weeks, like over at least a couple weeks, right? So this, I think, causes people a lot of stress, or they're like, oh, I'm not getting it right away. That's normal. But this is why we need to come back and touch it, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, even if it's only 30 minutes a day. This will produce much better results than if you just do 5 hours on Sunday. And I know it's not easy, right? Like if you are working full time, to find 30 minutes on a workday is like a heroic achievement. To do that consistently for weeks or months is a very heroic achievement. But that will, it will ultimately get you to your goal faster in like less cumulative hours. Will reduce the overall weight of this task if you can find that consistency. The two things that I see help students who do practice consistently, they do it in the morning. It's the first thing they do. So that's, it's just really easy. You wake up and you do this. You don't have to think about it all day. If you can get up in the morning, I'm not much of a morning person, so I would struggle with that. But that's what my students who are very disciplined and successful do. And they also delete socials. Good to take a break, right? Take a break for a minute. It will be good for you. As horrific as it was, I've done it and it was good for me. And that'll give you 30 minutes a day. Obviously, if your career, your work relies on social media, think maybe about how you reduce it. But if you are in a position where you can just say, like, I'm going to pause this for a month, that is a really easy way to find time. Those are my big thoughts on how to start. Final thing I'll say about vocab couple of things about vocab to add. Go to Reddit. People are making some great GRE vocab resources on Reddit. My student sent me this great spreadsheet today that he found on Reddit that had all these things grouped. So like go to the forums. That's a really great place to find vocab stuff. But making your own flashcards is good, and steady over time. So vocabulary, I think, is one of those parts of this test that can feel so overwhelming, because it's like, it's not like we get a finite list of GRE words, it's just all the words. And that's a lot. So I think you just have to take it like one day at a time and chip away at it. So I would say like learn 20 words a week, but really learn them. Then also do like extra stuff, like do some outside reading, find some sources, find places where people are using like GRE vocabulary. And it can be like the New Yorker and the Atlantic. But I was talking with a student today, like there's all these other places we can find this, like Moira on Schitt's Creek has like a very big GRE vocabulary. So even things like that, like this osmosis absorption, like get a vocabulary podcast or YouTube videos and just play them in your headphones while you're at the gym. Do some deliberate learning of like 20 words a week, but then do these other things that just expose you to words, even if you aren't deliberately like writing them down. That will look them up so you know the meaning if you don't. But that, I think, I see those two things together produce like really great results over time. It can take, a little longer. Vocab accrues slower. The good news I have for you is that everyone I know who has taken the official test this year, including colleagues, feel that the current official test has less difficult vocabulary or more accessible, more everyday vocabulary than what the GRE used to, than what we see in the official guide even. So that's my start on those things. I am so obsessed with the question of how to study that I'm writing a little Substack about it. So if anyone wants to talk about it more, I'll link that at the end, because I think that's a great question. Folks who are just come in, welcome. Hi, Marco. Hi, Nipno. Today we are doing a choose our own adventure. So I've asked folks to share and ask that they have something that they want to talk about today. We've done how to study, we've done vocab. I'm just about to do word problems. So we're going to look at word problems. If anyone wants to add to our list, let me know. All right. I'm gonna talk a little bit, and then we're gonna actually do some word problems. And we're gonna talk a little bit more about how to study as we do all this. So I'm gonna tell you, we're gonna learn a little bit, then we're gonna practice, then we're gonna find we have questions, then we're gonna refine. That's our process. Two things about word problems. They have two components, right? Word problems are first about translating language into math. And then they are second about executing algebra mechanics. Solving things like solving for a single variable, solving a quadratic, solving for multiple variables, inequalities, absolute value, these fun things. These all show up. So we need these two parts. Like part A, I translate, and then I switch gears and I execute my algebra, because the things that I need to do when I translate are a little bit different from the things that I need to do when I do mechanics. So I always sort of think of these as two-part problems. Also, this informs how we study. If you know that your algebra mechanics are like a little shaky, even a little shaky, if there's a little hesitation, start there. If you're starting out and you're super new and you're like, oh gosh, I hate algebra, just start there. Just go back to the linear equations, get a book, get a video, find a video on YouTube, any resource you want, and just start building that. Then when that gets comfortable, you can get more into the problem solving. You're so welcome, Nikki. That was fun. That was a fun question. So we're going to look at both of these components in the context of problems, but work with where you're at today. So if you are, like, oh gosh, I've forgotten everything about algebra, just kind of follow along, focus on process, focus on the higher level stuff. You don't have to stress about being able to do these particular problems today. If you've been at this for a little longer, we're going to start with an easy problem. We're going to do a medium problem, then we're going to do a hard problem. So we can kind of see what happens at those different difficulty levels. But first, if you have ever engaged with any GRE material that I have been involved in making, you have probably seen this process. Processes, so how to study is so important. And then for the problems themselves, having a good process, consistent process that we always follow is essential for combating fatigue, for efficiency, for accuracy, and for not making small mistakes. So word problems, I always read them twice. I do a first read. I like to rush. So I call it my fast read. And my goal is just to get to the question. Then I am going to think about the question. I could reread it. And I am going to determine what I am being asked for, what the GRE wants from me. My goal, however you want to frame it, etc. And I'm going to write that down and put a box around it. Also, I'm going to do a demonstration where I show you all of this too. So we will get that. And I apologize, it's been a long day. I'm losing my voice a little. Then I go back and I reread. And I pause at every piece of punctuation. And I process just that onto my paper. When I say process onto my paper, that's the thing I say a lot. What I mean is my problem is on the screen. I have physical paper or an erasable surface for the at-home test. And a big part of problem solving is just figuring out how to get what's on the screen onto my paper. What I don't want to be doing is copying every problem off the screen, right? But what I also don't want to be doing is looking at the screen like this up and down, because that's also tiring and inefficient. So whatever type of problem I'm teaching, getting the relevant information onto paper is incredibly important. So in this case, it's usually like translating language into expressions or equations, but one step at a time. Cardinal rule of GRE problem solving: don't do more than one thing at a time. Do not do anything. Do not do more than one step in your head. Everything has to get written down. Then, once they've done that, then I switch into doing the algebra to solve. And here I write down everything. I go one step at a time. And I'm just very methodical. I do not try to go fast. Because once I've done the translation, right after step 2, if I can do step 2 successfully, then it's just the ball rolling downhill. Then it's just my algebra mechanics, which will, by the time you take this test, be very good and solid and sharp, because it's an important foundation. So if I know that I've done the hard part, I really don't want to fumble on the easy part. And then finally, I check that what I have solved for matches what the goal was. This is my process. I do this every single time I do a word, but I spend a portion of every day doing GRE problems. Ones I haven't seen, because I'll tutor and we'll just keep going through new problems endlessly. And I do this. This is based on what I do when I'm teaching, when I take the test. I also developed this in the process of watching a lot of people make a lot of mistakes and making a lot of mistakes myself. So if this seems like a bit overkill, just try to trust me for a moment, try it out, see how it goes. Because this is also a process that may feel like overkill on an easier question, but that will be essential on a more difficult one. All right, that's my spiel. Yes, Nikki, you can. It is a very simple calculator and it is on the screen. So it's not like separate, you can't bring your own, and you have to click on it, like usually with a mouse. So yes, yes, there is a calculator, but you're gonna wanna like try it out and see what it's like and like have a bit of a strategy for it, because you will need it sometimes, but you don't wanna get too dependent on it because it's clunky. All right, so I'm just gonna grab my virtual copy of the 5-pound book. I'm going to take us to the chapter on word problems, and I'm going to show us this process. Oh, wrong share. Right. Cool. I'm going to start with problem 2. You can all kind of take a scan. If you want to solve it yourself, go for it. And I'm going to then walk through my process in a quick second. As I'm, if at any moment anyone wants to ask for another question or topic, let me know. We're going to spend a little bit more time with word problems first. So here's my process. Okay, read all these. Nash had 12 granddaughters, 3 times grandchildren, and 3 times as many granddaughters as grandsons. How many granddaughters did he have? All right, how many granddaughters? So I'm going to just say like D for granddaughters, because I also have grandsons, and I'm going to put that at the top. That's ultimately what I want to solve for. Then I go back. If Nash had 12 grandchildren, I'm going to just pause there. What does that mean? Nash has 12 grandchildren. Well, if D is daughters, let's make S sons. And then let's make D daughters. I kind of forgot this, but I don't write this out necessarily, but I mentally, this I wouldn't put on my paper, but I mentally make it clear to myself, sons and daughters. And if you are having trouble with word problems, I encourage you to write this down. Write down the definition of the variables, especially if you're having trouble with some of those like time change, age change, 2 variable problems. This will help. Cool. So if Nash had 12 grandchildren, so what does that mean? It means the total of all of his grandchildren was 12. Now, I know in algebra, if I have 2 variables, I need 2 equations to solve. And I know that I have to be able to solve this problem because there are integer answers. So I know that I'm going to be able to make a second equation. Here we go. 3 times as many granddaughters as grandsons. Okay. I don't like the as many, so I'm going to think, who are there more of? There's more granddaughters. So that means the granddaughters are 3 times the grandsons. All right, great. Now I did the translation. I feel good about it. This is exciting. Now I'm going to figure out my mechanics. I see that the variable D is already isolated here. So to me, the easiest algebra is to put this in for D. If you're like, what is this? Look up systems of equations. That's a good topic too. This becomes 4s equals 12, divide both sides by 4, and we get s equals 3. Ooh, but I do my check. It's actually daughters. Cool. So now I know that daughters equals 3s, which equals 9. Yep, 9. why do I do all this out, right? Like, couldn't I just kind of stop there and do it in my head? Absolutely, I could. And if I only had to do this one problem, I would do it that way. But I have to do, maybe 40 problems, maybe 27, depending on when you take the GRE. I have to do a lot of math problems. I have to do them fast, under pressure. If I start doing things in my head, I'm going to get more tired. And by problem 11, I'm going to be making a lot of mistakes and I'm going to be really stressed out. So I write it all down because then it's on the paper. It's not all in my brain. I can see it. I can double check it's right. And I'm not going to get as tired. And then I circle it so I can make sure I've chosen 9. I've got 9. 9 is daughters. I've selected E, 9, 9. Great. I cannot tell you how many times I've worked with people who do all the math perfectly and then they just don't click the right letter. It happens all the time. That's why, or they do all the math beautifully and then they input the wrong variable. So one challenge of this test is like, do you know the math? Another is, can you solve these problems? But a third is just, can you pay attention to detail and stay calm enough under pressure to pay attention to detail? And that's a hugely important thing. All right, so that's my process. I've talked to you so much. Let's do a problem. We're going to start with sort of a less, a like simpler one, an easier one, and then we are going to look at maybe a medium one, maybe a hard one. We'll kind of see how this goes. So let's just do number 4. I'm going to go off camera while you're doing this so you don't feel like I'm staring at you. But when you get an answer, chat me. Just chat me so that you don't tip off other people. Awesome. If you haven't yet chatted me an answer, chat me your answer, and then I'm going to show you. I'm writing out my work, and I'm going to show you. Here we go. The correct answer is C, 350. I've gotten a few, our answers are all sort of close together. So my question is for folks who did not, got close but not quite there, was it a small mistake? So if you're feeling good and you want to just check your work, can you find the error? In general, I want to ask folks who did it or tried it, what makes this question tricky? Like, where does this question present difficulty? Where might it go wrong? So either if you can spot your errors, spot it. If you're like, I'm completely confused, let me know, or maybe let me know what about this problem is tricky, if anything. Yeah, yep. First, really quickly, Rachel, at the test center, they give you unlined white paper and pencils. It's not a ton of paper. You can ask for more, but you have to like raise your hand and have them bring it over to you. So, good that you can use the paper and pencils, but it's not gonna be like ideal. Nothing about GRE is ever ideal. Yeah, I totally agree, Nikki. I think that's where I almost did make a mistake because I still make a ton of math mistakes all the time, even though I do this every day. Goes to show getting rid of small errors is hard. Profit per ticket, right? And this is kind of tricky because we know the revenue per ticket, but we don't know the expenses per ticket. This is actually something that will also come up a lot in stats. Good thing to know about the GRE first. If you notice that the units don't match, deal with that first if you can. So once I notice that, where I'm like, oh, this is clearly kind of the tricky part, I'm like, can I deal with it? Well, let me first think about profit, right? Profit is revenue minus cost. I need it per ticket. I have my price per ticket. Can I get the expenses into per ticket? Well, I don't know how many tickets there are. So that's why I invent this variable T. So that I can then write an expression for the cost per ticket, which comes here. And then that's my profit. This is absolutely not the only way to do this. There's definitely other ways to set up the algebra, definitely other ways to organize it. You could also test answer choices, which is a different strategy that I'm not going to get into today. It's called back solving. You can probably find a pre-prep hour on it. The other thing too that I find super helpful here is write down the formula. That's another little like tweak to the process that I find really useful. All right, let me see where we're at for time. Let's do a medium one. So if you were like, I maxed out on that one, right? Like, I don't remember very much algebra. It's been a while. Like, just like, come along for the ride. Think if you want to ask more questions, you don't have to stress about getting thrown into some difficult problems. But we have some folks who've been with this for a while. So they want to give us, let's do another profit one. That'll be fun. Let's do like a slightly harder profit one. And if you don't feel like solving this one, you could also just think about what makes this a harder question. Here we go. Cool. Yeah, Amber, you got it. Nice. What makes this one more difficult? Why is this a more difficult problem? Another way of asking that question might be, what about this problem is more difficult than the last one? What about this problem is not more difficult than the last one? These are the good kinds of questions to ask as you study, right? The more we can kind of ask these like reflective, comparative, analytical type of questions, the faster we will learn. Yeah, absolutely, right? Like we add difficulty just by adding more layers of operation, more things to keep track of. That is one way we add difficulty. What is not more difficult? Yeah. Like none of the actual like dealing with the translation, none of the like none of the actual mechanics or math stuff or concepts are harder. It's just harder because there's more things to do. This is not the only way the GRE adds difficulty, but I think it's a good thing to be aware of. We can get pretty far with this test with some pretty straightforward math tools that I think anyone can readily acquire with a little time and effort and patience. So I know that the math itself often feels like an enormous barrier to this test, but it is very much a surmountable one, in part because sometimes it's really not about the math, it's just about the organization. Yeah, like that's a perfect way to put it. Easier formulas, but more steps. And when this happens, we just have to be super organized, take our time, write things down. This is a problem where I'm like, it's an easy win if I can be structured and patient in my approach. The correct answer to this is B. I am not going to walk through all of it now, but if you're like, I'm not sure about this one, maybe take a screenshot and come back to it. If you're new, you can screenshot it, come back to it when you've done a little bit more work. All right. I want to get one. Rachel, I'm sorry I sort of misinterpreted your ask, but I want to get one sort of geometry word problem for you. So we're going to do one more word problem, then we're going to call it a day. But this one's going to be geometry. Circles. All right, I think I have a good one. I am going to write the formulas and stuff on the screen just so that anyone who wants to try this has the knowledge. So a right circular cylinder is just a normal cylinder. It's kind of the only cylinder we see on the GRE. And the formula for the volume is pi r squared, area of a circle, times h. A way to remember that, if this is my circle, this is my radius, this is my height, pi r squared is the area. So the volume is like taking a bunch of little slices of that area, right? So area of the circle, pi r squared, times the number of little slices. That is my trick for memorizing that formula. All right, try this question if you are up for it. See how it goes. All right, I'm gonna quickly walk through this one, just because we're running low on time, and I like doing geometry, and it gives me a chance to say a word or two about geometry process before I send you all on your way. So, any word problem, read it twice, right? How many inches high? So I'm looking for height, and I know that I have a box. Oh, that's just a horrible drawing. Let me try to do a little better. My drawings aren't good, but they're big. My paper drawing is a little bit better than this. Drawing a straight line is hard. Cool. And I know this box is 4 by 2 by 8, doesn't really matter. And then I know that it's half full. And I think the half full is maybe the big trick in this problem, right? So again, why do I always draw the shapes in geometry? Why do I always draw the shapes? I always draw the shapes because it helps me catch those little details. That's also why I read twice. And it is poured into a cylinder. Here's my drawing of a cylinder. I know that this radius equals 2. So poured into, right, this is volume, like how much milk is here. This is volume. So let me first figure out how much milk there is. Volume of a cube is length times width times height. I mean, yeah. So I know that, and I'm looking for 1/2 that, right? So 1/2, 8 times 4 times 2, that's 32. So now I can plug that into my cylinder equation, right? Volume in the cylinder equals pi, 2 squared is 4, and I don't know the height, times h. And then I divide both sides by 4 pi. And I get 8 over pi. And I don't freak out about that because I've looked at my answers. Always look at your answers because they give you important information. That's something I left out. Look at the answers. Oh, there's pi. Cool. I'm not going to stress when I get this. D is my answer. That is it. Awesome. I hope, yeah, I hope maybe my biggest tip for geometry word problems actually, Rachel, is draw. And get really clear. And actually for a lot of other word problems too, like rates problems, probability, combinatorics. These are all places where a diagram, draw, visualize, because all word problems happen in the real world. And we can use, we can use our common sense a little bit to help. Maybe it will make more sense when you start solving more of them if you are new. So just to add a couple little things here, for geometry, draw the shape. You may want to also write down the formulas near the beginning. That's super helpful. And I think that's what I got. That's my process for today. Cool. Thank you all so much for being here, for coming along on our small free prep hour ride. I do these once a month, and I'm probably going to keep doing them like this for a while. So if you like this format, come. But I have colleagues who do them too, and they do them differently. So if you don't like this format, go to theirs. They're amazing. Come to both. And finally, if you really want to get more into like how to study, I have a weird little side project where I'm trying to write about how the tarot can help us in our GRE studies, or just trying to connect those two things that seem like they shouldn't connect, but I'd argue that they do. So if that is something that is up your alley, it's a niche thing, there's a link. I will also put my email in the chat if anyone wants to, if you want to follow up about something from today. Finally, we are always offering free classes. You can find them all the time on our website. I will show you the link. You can come, if you're like, I want like a basic overview of the question types and the structure and the core strategies, then, I want to really get into it for 3 hours. Come check out a free trial class. It doesn't cost anything, and it will answer a lot of your foundational questions. You are so welcome, Mickey. Thank you for being here. Cool. That's all I got. Thank you so much for being here, for participating. I appreciate it. Makes it more fun for me. And thanks for bringing great questions. I have really enjoyed talking about them. Yay. Have a good night, everyone. You're welcome. Bye, Nikki. Bye, Rachel. Bye, Amber.